Hey, I feel very weird to make this video right now, but somehow I want to, and I don't know. I have just been informed that my sister has passed away, which unfortunately isn't too shocking. I'm still in that place where it hasn't fully hit me yet. It hasn't sunk in, which also, unfortunately, is something I've learned because my mom and my grandmother on that side have also passed, with my grandmother recently passing. It's been crazy for like a really long time, basically my entire life. My mom was very problematic. All three of them had similar traits, like possibly borderline personality, probably even schizophrenia, and I don't know. It's a pretty disturbing experience. Some part of me wonders if this is just the state of America. Like, I can't imagine that I'm the only one going through something like this. And the way the government is responding, I think they're trying to, like, fix the problem. But it just seems like a house of cards is falling. And the government is probably trying to eradicate anybody that is deemed a risk to the future or the system. And of course, there's all these explanations like who is to blame for what's occurring. I've been personally hiding the situation, not very well, but I haven't told any of you, obviously. And in a weird way, well, I could never figure out what the right thing to do was. Like, should I just keep pretending to smile and pretend like I can keep just doing all these science things and art things, which I have continued, but not to the same degree, or more particularly, I guess, I have sunk into expressing through art as a coping mechanism. But I think even with that, due to just the weirdness surrounding all of it, I imagine some people just thought I've lost my mind. I'm not sure. And even throughout all this, I worried that my sister would be actually targeted by the government at some point if she went homeless. My mom went homeless before she passed, a little bit, but they were both living in the same place, actually, and probably may have passed under similar circumstances. I'm not sure yet, actually. I was informed that, well, my sister had messaged me at like 3 a.m. saying that her dad had died. We don't share the same dad, although I've been pretty close with her dad throughout my life. But he did not pass. I actually got a call from him when I woke up saying he's sorry to inform me, but my sister had passed. And so she was apparently in some sort of delusional episode, which is also not unusual. She was addicted to alcohol. It could have been withdrawals that killed her. I'm not sure. My mom was also addicted to alcohol and eventually heroin. And that's how she passed, seemingly of her own will, based on things that my sister had told me, for which my sister blamed herself because she had one time said, "Go ahead," when my mom threatened to off herself, leading up to when she actually passed. And from my side of it, my mom messaged me a week in advance, and I ignored it because things were just so bad, and there was a lot of kind of abuse that had occurred throughout our entire lives to all people involved, to be honest. My sister, me, my mom, my sister's dad, all to each other in various ways, I would say, but with particular, there were particular directional aspects of all of it, like certain people chronically hurting each other. I don't know. I'm still thinking how it's really weird that I'm making this now, but this is something I've thought of talking about for a long time. And right now, I guess I'm pretty vulnerable and shook about it all. I mean, part of me feels numb, but also not. And part of me doesn't want to think about this. I don't even want to inform other people that are in my family. Somehow that's more disturbing, I guess, obviously, because the weight of the emotionality will be way more. Whereas when I make this, it's actually literally nobody here. Even though I'm kind of telling all of you, it's like there's no, since I don't know most people out here, I don't feel that way. Like, it's not the same. Especially even the people I cared about. If it was done over text or something, that's obviously a cowardly way to do things, but just not observing the reaction would feel safer. So that's why I feel afraid, I guess. Because then I would be forced to confront how I feel, or I'd be forced to feel it. The thing is, leading up to this, I was trying to save my sister for so long, up to a year probably. I can't remember exactly. And I basically started to go crazy through that. There was a lot of instances where I was abused, I would say, which I feel weird, obviously, talking about that now. But I think it was more of a survivalistic thing, which is a lot more apparent now because she has not survived. And honestly, part of myself blames myself because I was fighting with her recently about how her alcohol use was essentially leading her to being okay with hurting other people or risking their lives even. And I even tried to at times, because I knew that part of her was wanting to not live. And I even told her that if she were to make that choice, and I feel conflicted about this, but it is also obviously true, I would say, is that making that choice would inflict irreversible psychological damage on people around her. And it's just a weird situation, because part of the reason that she wants to leave is that she thinks people don't care about her, and she kind of fell into delusional framings partly, but her life also was actually very bad. Both of our lives really were. Mine, maybe not as much, though, I would say. Only because when we split paths, I think I went somewhere safer, arguably, but I was still undergoing abuse from my ex, which was kind of crazy, and I would say it was kind of a mixed thing. Like, I feel like I was reactively reciprocating some of that to my ex, like especially when I felt cornered or trapped, because that situation was like, well, I was basically pushed or trained to not associate to anyone outside of her network because she could control that. But if I were to develop like some kind of social safety net outside of her, that means it would be easy if I wanted to leave, which was a threat. Like, basically just jealousy was what it was. But that's what I think jealousy is that people see others as a threat to the safety of the relationship, especially because in the early parts of our dating, it was like my friends tried to essentially like save me from being with her, and that led to me kind of like, I would tell my ex about it, like, look, my friends are like concerned that this is a really bad situation, because back then when we first started dating, she would like threaten to hurt herself to control me, and even threaten to off herself, and she would scream. There were very, very rare times she would physically attack me, but not really in a way that really mattered. Like, one time she made me bleed by punching me in the face, but I feel like that was not even close to the psychological stuff, or even that. It's like, obviously I'm not at risk of dying or something. Even that is psychological when you get down to it. And so, like, I don't know, I'm just kind of judging myself for making this, which I think is fair. But the thing is, I feel it's necessary because, like, a lot has happened. Like, there were people that expected a lot of me in regards to the science stuff and even the art and the book and everything. And I feel like I have given no justification for why things have gone this way. There were people financially supporting the projects at points, and it just feels like it just feels horrible, because I feel like I'm out here like pretending like, oh yeah, everything's fine, and don't worry, like, but then I'm like crashing and trying so hard to remain above water, and I feel like I sometimes imagine what people must think is that, oh, well, Gage is just screwing around, and now he's gotten involved in art, and he's just having so much fun that he doesn't even care about being responsible or into science or whatever. But it's so much more complicated. And even with that, like, it's so mixed. Like, everything's so... The perspectives like that from people in the science space... Well, I'm imagining this, and no one's said this to me, just to be clear. But I don't know. It's just, it feels like the obvious conclusion people could make if they were very critical of me. Because I withhold all the information of what's really happening. And I have talked about some of the situation in previous videos. I've told a lot of people close to me who are also involved in some of the scenes that I'm in. So it's not completely unknown. But I don't know. Like, definitely a lot of the people that supported me don't know anything about this. And I've hinted at it repeatedly across the years, and even, like, I don't know. It's just weird because, like, people will ask for my help online for various problems they're facing psychologically, or with interest to biohacking or things like that, and I just don't reply, or I can't do that much. And it's not like I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I don't care, I'm just interested in doing art, sorry. Like, that's obviously, I mean, I don't know if anyone really thought that, but that's just not what's happening. So, like, that's, I guess, part of the inspiration of this. But there's another layer where I'm watching America fall apart, and people are scrambling to try to fix it, the government included. And I almost wonder if my situation is just an extremity of all of what's happening. Like, it seems weirdly coincidental. Like, from my perspective, if I don't believe that that's the case, I feel like I'm forced to think that it's somehow coincidental that, like, all the women, like, in lineage are all dying, having the same symptoms, and there's all this, like, toxic behaviors occurring, people abusing each other, trying to survive, and that's not all, or this all just, I would have to believe that that's all coincidental, and that's just simultaneously happening to the collapse of everything else, which I don't think makes sense, really. I actually think that part of what's happening is that maybe there's some problem. Like, I feel like, say with the whole pandemic situation, when that happened and what happened to our culture, I feel like it just kind of nudged everything downward a little bit. Like, a bunch of people passed away because of it, and it kind of just accelerated negativity on some level. So I think that's cause, like once that starts, I feel like if people around you pass away, I think it essentially raises your own risk of also passing away or undergoing your own personal crises. Like, I feel like that's not very, I think most people would agree with that. Like, that's what people talk about, grieving and stuff. And even here, I'm describing how I'm failing to meet the imagined expectations that I think are imposed on me by people that have previously supported the things that I do. So it's like, maybe in my case, I might not be doing something particularly crazy, but I'm doing something worse than I was before, which was being highly productive and effective at things, which it's a little bit debatable. I do feel like I actually am still doing things. It's just a little bit weirder. Hold on. But I think it's like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be able to do the science stuff easily right now. It would be too difficult. There had to be a sense of freedom for that to work, I realized, and a lot of the gift that I was granted before was that freedom, and that's why things happened this way. And then I guess, in a sense, I was feeding the world with that. At least that's the most optimistic view of what I was doing. You could argue that I was wrong about everything and just crazy or something, but I don't know. But there's a lot I still haven't talked about in this situation that's just crazy. Like, so most of you might know I was basically poor for most of my life. Like I had mentioned, my mother went homeless before. I was in foster care at points. My mom passed away like in 2011. And then I went to live with another family member for a long time. And then eventually I went to university and things were going well, but it was complicated. Like throughout the whole time after my mom passed, I was with my ex and she was intense. Like things got better later, but it was kind of some of the craziest stuff, and I'll probably make a separate video talking about it. But towards the end, it was ambiguous whether or not we had broken up. I was confused about it. She told me if I ever got famous that she would break up with me, and weird stuff like that. She kept saying that I'm like stupid and hypercritical. But I still think there were a lot of good things. Like when the breakup happened, I felt that actually it was better being with her than the breakup, which sounds crazy, but being around her provided a lot of social support in the times that weren't completely horrible. It provided me a whole social network, even though I was kind of barred from forming my own. She would do things, just to be clear, because I feel like being ambiguous about those things, very heavy, I guess, accusations. I should be clear, some of the stuff that would happen, like I've met people from the science space. I have met up with them, and then I was driving them back to the airport after they had traveled here to meet up with me and others, and then my ex kept calling over and over while we're in the car, and then would yell at me and tell me to drop this person off on the side of the road rather than taking them to the airport. And so they were jealous even then, like with a guy. There were more people there earlier, including a girl, which I wonder if that was a factor. But it was like, I don't know, like 4 people, I think. And it was nothing weird, but even with my friends that were male and close, I often had to leave early if I was hanging out with them. I would get called and they'd be like, can you stop hanging out with them now and come see me? And there was a lot of that, and it ended up just being really bad. Like, and I did a lot of bad stuff too. Like I would scream and act crazy. I don't know, but there was a lot of bad stuff, and it just genuinely got crazy. I think we were both kind of young and naive at the time, so I don't even fully blame her, and I feel like she's a product of her own circumstances, including some of the circumstances of our early dating, like the situation that happened with my friends kind of trying to protect me, and that built distrust in future friends, and then I tried to break up, so that reinforced this idea that she could lose me at any point. So then that would amplify the jealousy, because then if I develop closeness with new friends, they might tell me to break up. And so it's just kind of like that's how it played out. But it got really bad. And this wasn't what the video was supposed to be, I guess. Well, it's really supposed to be all of it. I wanted to talk about all of it. So later, things started to go different with my grandmother. I started to get extremely more poor, but then when I went to university, my grandmother offered to help me to go to university financially. And then I did it, but then at the time, I didn't realize it, but it was almost like forming a contract, which I would help her in her times of need, which escalated significantly to the point that I basically eventually canceled doing a lot of stuff related to science because it just got to where I couldn't cope with the situation. Like, basically my grandmother would enter psychosis and stuff like that, and then even the neighbors would get involved. I would have like multiple people calling my phone while I was driving over there to try to help, and they would be like, Gage, what are you doing right now? Like, your grandmother's freaking out. You need to do something about this. This is really bad. And then, like, I got the sense that my grandmother would paint the people around her as not being helpful in such a way that I feel like they would probably all start calling each other desperately, hoping that they would take responsibility or something. Because that's how I would feel with the way she would talk to me about people. Like, she would say, oh, they're really nice people, they really care, but then kind of, it would be depicted weird, like she might say something like, oh, they are really good people. And I remember this one time where, like, I don't know, she would say something like, I was crippled on the floor, I needed emergency help, but my friend was busy having a birthday party or something, so they couldn't help me, or like, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. That's not a specific thing. I can't remember the specifics anymore, but she would kind of frequently frame things that way, like, where it's like she would frame them technically saying nice things, but also it would be like, it would look really messed up in the way that she framed it. Like, oh gosh, like, how could people be so selfish or cruel? And usually, if I were to find out more details about the situations, I don't know. There was a lot of cases where she was delusional. Like, she would tell me a lot of things about her husband that I would later realize deeper understanding that they were delusional elements or also manipulated elements or deceptive elements, which it gets even more complicated when both are the case at the same time. And it got to levels that were almost just like, she thought she'd been microchipped and that her husband was doing this on behalf of the government, and that her hallucinations in her legs were an effect of the microchip, and that's part of an experiment, like a government experiment, which obviously is so unlikely to be the case. But eventually, she had gotten a lung respiratory thing and was hospitalized for months and had passed away. And that was only like, that was late 2025 or mid 2025, I think. I can't fully remember right now. But that was happening. And, well, I didn't really explain the whole dynamic yet, but essentially, the way things were was like, she was trying to get rid of her husband and replace him with me as the person that she's dependent on for everything. Like, she couldn't really walk, but she would kind of lie about her ability being really high. She would also imply that if her husband were just gone, then she would be spontaneously recovered, and that it was the stress that was causing the symptoms that she was facing, including the seemingly dementia or psychosis symptoms, which is maybe plausible, but also very unlikely and risky, because if he's gone and I'm the one in charge, I would basically be full-time doing that. And when I was with her, when I would go to help her, there would be a lot of extreme circumstances, like not sleeping to the point that I start hallucinating, and like after helping her, I would be like traumatized for like 1 to 2 weeks, and it would have this repeating cyclical pattern where I would get kind of manic from the relief of no longer having to deal with the stress. Like once I was home, I felt safe, and then I feel like the relief of that would turn into a mix of like a positive mood, but mixed with the intense adrenaline of the fear of that whole situation. So then I'd be like accelerated, and but then I would crash into numbness and depression, and like I would constantly be paranoid that she would die. I was constantly feeling like, well, here's the crazy part too, is that it eventually evolved into where I could no longer easily work to do like supporting myself, and like that was part of the situation of I don't know, basically I just was getting too messed up mentally and kind of bedridden a lot of the time even, and paranoid and confused, and I have my own like mental weirdness, but and so it got into this loop where she would start offering money which would like compensate for me not being able to work, and she would even kind of encourage a future like that. Like she suggested we should travel the world and do it together even though she couldn't walk, and she was having like these crazy episodes. And sometimes it was believable. Like I found myself believing a lot of what she would say, but then the crisis moments would happen, and then I would get scared away, and then eventually I just had an aversion to everything and started like mentally dissociating and checking out. And honestly, a lot of that was like how my mom was too. So it's like this is a pattern that kept going since I was almost born. But it was different with my mom, and eventually I broke away from her, but then she passed away too. And now my mom passed away. I mean, my grandma passed away. And next, now it's horrible. Now my sister, I've just been informed, is like passed away. But it was honestly actually extremely similar to what was happening with my grandmother, which makes me suspicious that it's something not just the alcohol, or I don't know. But my sister, I started paying her rent, I started buying all her food, and I didn't really have much money left, but it started to get just weird. She would turn abusive to me when she was going psychotic, but luckily that didn't happen very much of the time. There was like a couple weeks period where that was happening. Like she would demand I buy her a phone, then when I did, she said it wasn't good enough, and she would basically just be like, what is this? This is crap. Like, how could you give me this? You better get me a better phone. Like, it would be like that, like super harsh, aggressive, like entitled. And then I was paying for her whole existence, basically. And then I would be like driving to her constantly every day and like spending a lot of time there. And then she would get delusional and like accuse me of things. And she would lie to me, actually. And that's where it got weirder. Eventually, she stopped being overtly abusive in an aggressive way. And it turned into like, I don't know, it was like exploiting my pity towards her, I guess, or exploiting my concern for her life. She would continuously create scenarios where it's like she's like, I'll die if you don't do what I say, sort of thing. But the thing is, now she's dead, and it's like maybe some of that was just true. I don't know. But it got really bad where like, I don't even want to talk about it, but I feel like I have to if I'm doing this already, but well, okay. There was a point where she had told me she got diagnosed with cancer, which was like an ongoing narrative for months. And then I started kind of getting in contact with the ER because she said she finally is going to the ER, which she repeatedly was going to the ER for alcohol related reasons. But then she went for, supposedly, she's like, I'm finally going to just deal with this. I'm going to ask for help for the cancer. Like, I'm clearly bleeding out. And now, well, I went in to the ER and also talked to them on the phone at some of these points and was finally able to ask them questions. And they said they never heard anything about the cancer thing. And it just started to get really suspicious. We started fighting more because of that, because I realized like she might be lying to create the scenario that pressures me to constantly obey and do what she needs. Because she eventually got to the point, like at first she was still functional, but she got to the point where she was bedridden and having other people feed her. She couldn't even go to the bathroom, and like it just got like really bad. Like, and like, but it's like this weird element to it because it's almost like she's completely pampered in a weird way, which that's where the suspicion starts to come in, especially if she's lying and making up things to control people. But it's like she could have been just delusional too, which that's the narrative that started to unfold because she started to get like sad and say, I think I might be delusional at some point. But it was after I had caught her in multiple ways, and it didn't really make sense because like it wasn't like she had delusional memories really. It was like she's at the hospital and I'm like, tell me please that you told them about the cancer and you're going to get help. And she's like, yes, I told them everything you told me to say. And then and then she also told me she wasn't drinking alcohol, and I don't know. So it's like she lied about not drinking the alcohol. She lied about telling them about the cancer. And then later, once I caught her, that's when she's like, well, maybe I was delusional. I'm afraid I'm just losing my mind. And it might have been the case, but it was just very convenient at the time because, I don't know, like she kept creating a scenario where she's enabling like drinking as a choice. And there were even points where it's like she would tell me how if she doesn't drink the alcohol, she'll die. And she's like saying she'll go into the ER in the morning, but she just needs like one more bottle. And then, so she would convince me to get her it, but then that would lead to us fighting more because it's like, it just felt completely like traumatizing. Like I'm basically being threatened like in a way with, like she's saying that she'll die and I'll be irreversibly traumatized unless I obey. That's like kind of how I was seeing it at the time. And I know that's like a very, I don't know what the word is, but the framing feels almost selfish in a way. But I think it's also true on some level. And it just gets weird because it's like I couldn't tell what's real because she's apparently lying and delusional at the same time. And it just got so bad. Like I would be waking up at 2 a.m. to go get her alcohol, and I'd be like freaking out, already deprived from sleep from the previous night of one of her crisis moments. And then there were just so many bad choices happening too. Like she got prescribed meds that would interact with alcohol, and she wouldn't stop the alcohol, and she's asking if I could go pick up her meds, like as if I'm in charge with like determining her fate if she's going to risk her life doing these things, and like putting me in that position. And then I kept saying like she needs to stop, like that it's not right that she can do that to people. Like put them in charge of, like, I don't know, like, that they will be in charge of whether or not she's going to die, and that it's like she's basically threatening to off herself if you don't do something that will also risk her life. So it's like either way, there's this risk. And then even sometimes she would say that she would deliberately do that. And then I freaked out one time saying I was getting feelings like that because of the whole dynamic that was unfolding. And this, just to be clear, is like within months of my grandmother passing. So it's like, I don't know, it's just like never ending. And I don't know, it's just like, it just got really crazy. And it was like there's no right choices. And even sitting here now, I don't know what she's passed away from, but I think withdrawals is a likely scenario, or sepsis, or stroke, or who knows what else. There's a lot of things it could have been. We kept, well, I'd caught myself there. I noticed I was like trying to not feel like it's my fault, but I also think it is my fault apparently too. And I don't know, it's just like, I don't know. I'm kind of freezing up about it all, but it's just getting like really crazy. Like it's just, and again, it could be like this is what America is becoming. I don't know if this is usual. I know I was hiding a lot of this stuff from like all the people, like as I said, that support me and stuff. But I tried like so hard to help her, and then I couldn't handle it. I feel like I couldn't handle it maybe if I was closer. I mean, like I was close for a long time to where it felt completely uncomfortable, but towards the end, I started setting certain boundaries because, I don't know, there were so many confusing elements of it. Like, she literally told me that she's evil at certain points, and that, I don't know. So it's like when she's saying that, then also I catch her lying. Because later she went and confirmed and told me that she definitely didn't have cancer. And I don't know. She would make so many controlling threats. Like she would make statements like oh, maybe I'll just go do this really bad thing since no one cares, or like something weird like that. Like there was a lot of stuff like that. And I don't know, I was literally going insane trying to help. And now she's just gone. I think I'm gonna stop it now because clearly I'm like spiraling and it's starting to hit me. I don't know if this is like a ridiculous thing to be doing right now. Not even just ridiculous, but I kind of feel like it's important though, to be honest. Like I said, like whatever's happening in my mind right now, it's transient. That I know. And documenting it, I think, is valuable, partly for showing just what's happening, not even just personally, but maybe in a lot of places. And and on top of all that, there's just like all this stuff happening globally now. It's like, and I think it has to be related. Like the people involved are probably affected by things like this to which they blame others for causing the problem. Like, imagine if I felt that the producers of alcohol were the problem and I start doing something about it, or like, like there's obviously a lot of things like that kind of happening. But I don't think there's a lot of empathy being spread about these things, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about their actual personal situations, because I wasn't. And I'm doing this out of like an impulse of like the shock of this moment. Like, this stuff has been happening for like over a decade. Like, stuff started to get seriously bad by like 2020, clearly, I guess, but even a little bit before then, and then it just like spiraled after 2020 to where like never-ending dominoes falling. And I think we can fix this as a world, but we need to start with empathy. And I think people need to know that these things are happening, because like what I think is happening is that I feel like the people who have power are affected personally by scenarios maybe like this somewhere in their lives, and they've pinpointed like people to blame. And I think from there's like a spreading contagious sentiment about those who are to be blamed. And then it just becomes like this mimetic thing spreading. And but I think a lot of the things that are happening that people would consider like say when people are like jobless, or like whatever else is happening that is bad, or like say like when people turn to drugs, I feel like a lot of that is probably because there's so much of this kind of stuff happening. It's like a contagious collapse or something. And it makes sense that it works that way, because the more that it collapses, the more that other people are affected in a terrible way. And then it just keeps getting worse until something happens. Like, okay, I'm going to stop now. But maybe people should try to just calmly and empathetically share their situations like this, because I really do think there's a lot of this happening more than it seems. And my worry would be that, like, the way that it could go badly is if everyone is hiding their problems and they're trying really hard to, like, keep pressing on, but they're losing it. And then they look at other people around them and think no one else is going through it, so screw them, or something like that. Like, blame them. Like, they are perpetuating the systems that make things bad, or like stuff like that. So I think that this could be like a step in just being honest about things. I think I'll be able to handle stuff. I've already been through a lot, and I feel like I've honestly maybe gotten stronger from some of it, but I mean, I'm also like kind of not okay a lot of the time. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna turn it off now. I hope all of you are safe out there and have a good day.